The world had fallen into violence, and a single family was chosen to carry a promise. A promise passed from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, whose 12 sons became a nation. But famine drove them into the land of Egypt, where they found protection under Joseph, the son once betrayed. Now generations have passed, the kings of Egypt have changed, and the nation that once arrived as guests has grown into a people the empire fears. And this is where the story of Exodus begins. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came into the land of Egypt with Jacob, each man bringing his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. 75 souls in all, descended from the thigh of Jacob, their lives carried by the memory of covenant. Joseph was already in Egypt, but in time he died, and so did his brothers and all of that generation. Yet the children of Israel were fruitful. They swarmed, increased, and multiplied with vigor, becoming exceedingly strong. Like seeds planted in foreign soil, they flourished until the land itself was heavy with their presence. Then a new king rose over Egypt, one who knew nothing of Joseph. He looked upon the people of Israel not with honor, but with fear. And he said to his people, "Behold, the sons of Israel are more numerous and stronger than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply further. And if war arises, they join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the land." So they appointed taskmasters over them, overseers of burden, to bend their backs with forced labor. And the children of Israel, once shepherds and sojourners, were turned into slaves, building the store cities of Pithom and Ramses for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied. The more they were crushed, the more they spread. Their strength became a threat, their increase a provocation. And so the Egyptians grew embittered. With cruel rigor, they pressed the Israelites into harsh service, mixing clay and straw beneath the sun, shaping bricks with tired hands, laboring in the fields from dawn until dusk. They embittered their lives with every form of servitude, sparing no task, no rest, no mercy. Then Pharaoh turned to a more hidden cruelty. He summoned the Hebrew midwives, women of holy duty, Shiphrah and Puah by name. He commanded them, saying, "When you attend the Hebrew women at the birthing stones, if the child is a son, you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, she shall live." Yet the midwives feared Elohim more than Pharaoh. In secret defiance, they refused the decree. They preserved the lives of the newborn sons, letting them breathe the air Elohim had given. When Pharaoh called them to account, he asked, "Why have you done this thing? Why have you allowed the boys to live?" And the midwives answered, "The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous. Before we arrive, they have already given birth." Whether born of wisdom or of courage, the answer stayed Pharaoh's wrath. And because the midwives feared Elohim, he dealt kindly with them. He gave them households, families, and enduring favor. Their reverence bore fruit, even in a land of death. Yet Pharaoh was not finished. Seeing that his commands were defied, he cast a new decree across the whole land. He instructed all his people, saying, "Every son born to the Hebrews, you shall cast him into the Nile, but every daughter you shall keep alive." Thus, the river that once fed Egypt was turned into a grave, and sorrow began to rise like mist from its waters. There was a man from the house of Levi who took for himself a wife, a daughter of Levi, and in the hush of a troubled season she conceived. When the child was born and she looked upon him, she saw that he was good, a child radiant with promise. For 3 months she hid him, cradled in shadows, guarded in silence. But when she could no longer conceal him, she prepared a small ark of papyrus, sealing its seams with pitch and asphalt, and gently laid the boy within. Her hands placed the vessel among the reeds along the edge of the Nile. the great river that had swallowed so many sons. From a distance, his sister watched, her eyes fixed and waiting, hoping to see what would become of him. Then, at the water's edge, Pharaoh's daughter descended to bathe, and her maidens walked beside the current. Amid the reeds, she saw the tiny ark. She sent her maidservant, who lifted it from the water. When the lid was opened, the child was there, a Hebrew boy, and he wept. Moved by compassion, she spoke, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." At once, the sister stepped forward with quiet boldness and said, "Shall I go and call a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter agreed, so the girl went and brought back the boy's own mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took her son and nursed him in her arms once more, this time beneath the cover of royal mercy. When the child had grown, he was brought again to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." In those days when Moses had grown into a man, he went out to see his brothers, the sons of Israel. He looked upon their burdens and saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his kin. Moses turned this way and that, and seeing no one nearby, he struck the Egyptian down and hid his body in the sand. The next day, he went out again and saw 2 Hebrews fighting. He said to the one in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" But the man turned and answered sharply, "Who made you a ruler and judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Then fear fell upon Moses, and he said in his heart, "Surely the matter is known." When Pharaoh heard of the deed, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled, away from Pharaoh's face, into the wilderness of Midian. There, by the well, he sat down. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and filled the troughs for their father's flock. But shepherds came and drove them away. Moses rose up in their defense, rescued them, and watered their sheep. When the daughters returned home earlier than usual, their father Reuel asked, "Why have you come back so soon today?" They answered, "An Egyptian delivered us from the hands of the shepherds, and he even drew water for us and watered the flock." Reuel said, "Where is he then? Why have you left the man behind? Call him, that he may eat bread." So Moses was welcomed to dwell with the man. Reuel gave him his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. In time she bore a son, and Moses named him Gershom, for he said, "I have become a sojourner in a foreign land." Many days passed. The king of Egypt died, but the burden of the sons of Israel remained. Their groaning rose from the heart of their servitude, and they cried out. Their cry ascended to Elohim, and he heard their moaning. Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. He looked upon the sons of Israel. He saw them, and he knew. Moses had become a shepherd, tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. One day, leading the flock beyond the edge of the wilderness, he came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. The place was barren, silent, ancient. There, amidst rock and dust, the unseen realm broke through. A messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire, blazing from the heart of a thorn bush. Moses stared. The bush burned, its branches curled in heat, but it was not consumed. Drawn by wonder, Moses spoke aloud to himself, "Let me turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned." And when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to look, Elohim called to him from within the flame, "Moses, Moses," and he answered, "Here I am." Then he said, "Do not come closer. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the ground on which you stand is holy." And he said further, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob." At these words, Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to gaze upon Elohim. Then Yahweh said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their pain, and I have come down to deliver them from the hand of Egypt, to bring them up from that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the territory of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. The cry of the sons of Israel has reached me, and I have seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh. Bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And he answered, I will be with you, and this will be the sign for you, that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve Elohim on this mountain. Still Moses said, When I come to the sons of Israel and say to them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? Then Elohim spoke to Moses, Ehyeh Asher, Ehyeh, I shall be who I shall be. And he said, Say this to the sons of Israel, Ehyeh has sent me to you. Elohim then said further, Say this to the sons of Israel, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered through all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel and say to them, Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, appeared to me, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and said, I have surely visited you and seen what is being done to you in Egypt. I will bring you up from your affliction to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice. Then you and the elders shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. Now please, let us go a journey of 3 days into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim. But I know, Yahweh said, that the king of Egypt will not let you go, not even by a strong hand. Therefore, I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders that I will do in their midst. After that, he will release you. And I will grant this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. When you go, you shall not go empty-handed. Every woman will ask of her neighbor and of the sojourner in her house for silver, for gold, and for clothing. You shall put them on your sons and daughters. In this way, you shall plunder Egypt. Moses answered Yahweh from the mountain's flame, still trembling in the shadow of divine fire. But behold, he said, they will not believe me, nor listen to my voice. They will say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. His words fell heavy with doubt, the fear of man louder in his heart than the voice of the burning bush. Yahweh said to him, What is that in your hand? And Moses replied, A rod. Then Yahweh commanded, Throw it to the ground. Moses obeyed, and the rod became a serpent, alive and writhing. In fear, Moses stepped back. But Yahweh said, Reach out your hand and grasp it by the tail. He did so, and the serpent returned to a rod in his palm. This, said Yahweh, is so that they may believe that the Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has indeed appeared to you. Then Yahweh gave another sign. Place your hand into your bosom. Moses placed it near his chest and drew it out. His skin was leprous, pale as snow. Now return it to your bosom, Yahweh said. Moses obeyed, and when he withdrew his hand again, it was restored like the flesh of a child. If they do not believe the first sign, Yahweh declared, perhaps they will believe the second, and if still they will not listen, take water from the Nile and pour it on dry ground. It shall become blood. But Moses, still wrestling with his own voice, said, O my Lord, I am not a man of words, not before, and not even now since you have spoken to me. I am slow of speech, heavy of tongue. Yahweh replied, Who made man's mouth? Who makes one mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? Now go, I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what to say." Still, Moses resisted. "O my Lord, please send someone else." Then the anger of Yahweh burned against him. Yet even in his wrath he showed mercy. "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know he can speak well. Even now he is coming to meet you. When he sees you, his heart will rejoice. Speak to him. Place the words in his mouth. I will be with your mouth and with his. He shall speak for you to the people. He will be your mouth, and you shall be as an Elohim to him. And take in your hand this rod. With it you shall perform the signs." So Moses returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said, "Let me go, I pray, and return to my brothers in Egypt, to see whether they yet live." Jethro replied, "Go in peace." And Yahweh said to Moses in Midian, "Return to Egypt, for all the men who sought your life are dead." Moses took his wife and his sons, set them upon a donkey, and began the journey back. The rod of Elohim was in his hand. Then Yahweh instructed him, "When you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have put in your hand. But I will harden his heart, and he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will kill your son, your firstborn.'" On the journey, at a place of lodging, a messenger of Yahweh met Moses and sought to put him to death. Then Zipporah, swift with understanding, took a flint blade and circumcised her son. She touched the foreskin to Moses' feet and said, "You are a bridegroom of blood to me." So Yahweh relented from striking him. Through this act, the covenant was restored and sealed in blood. Zipporah had spoken of a bond forged by obedience, one of blood and belonging. Meanwhile, Yahweh said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." And he went, and there at the mountain of Elohim he embraced his brother with a kiss. Moses told Aaron all the words of Yahweh and every sign he had shown him. Together they journeyed to Egypt. When they arrived, they gathered the elders of Israel. Aaron spoke all that Yahweh had commanded Moses to say, and he performed the signs before the people. And the people believed. When they heard that Yahweh had seen them, had truly noticed their suffering and humiliation, their hearts were moved. They bowed their heads, and they bowed down low. After the mountain and the signs, after the fire and the commission, Moses and Aaron came into the court of Pharaoh. Before the throne of Egypt, beneath its weight of gold and granite, they stood with a message from the one who speaks from flame. "Thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel," they declared. "Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh's voice did not tremble. He leaned forward with cold defiance and asked, "Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, and I will not let Israel go." His heart was unmoved, not by name nor command. But Moses and Aaron persisted. "The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go a 3-day journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he strike us with pestilence or with the sword." Pharaoh rose with contempt. "Why, Moses and Aaron? Do you distract the people from their work? Return to your burdens." And he said further, "The people of the land are now many, and you would make them rest from their labors." That same day, Pharaoh issued orders to the taskmasters and overseers among the Israelites. "No longer shall you give the people straw to make bricks, as you have before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But you shall still demand from them the same quota of bricks. They are idle, lazy. That is why they cry out, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim.' Let the work be heavier upon them, that they may labor under it and not be deceived by false words." So the taskmasters went out and proclaimed to the people, Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and find it wherever you can, but your work shall not be reduced. And the people scattered across the land of Egypt, searching the fields for stubble to use in place of straw. The taskmasters pressed them hard, saying, Fulfill your daily quota, each day as before, when straw was provided. The Israelite overseers, placed above their own by Pharaoh's taskmasters, were beaten. Why, they were asked, have you not fulfilled your assigned bricks yesterday and today, as before? Desperate, the overseers of Israel went into Pharaoh's court and cried out, Why are you doing this to your servants? No straw is given to us, yet we are told to make bricks. And now we are being beaten. Your own people are at fault. But Pharaoh's reply was sharp. You are idle, idle. That is why you say, Let us go and sacrifice to Yahweh. Now go and work. No straw will be given to you, yet you must deliver the full number of bricks. The Israelite overseers saw that they were in danger. As they left the palace, they found Moses and Aaron waiting for them outside. Their words burned with betrayal. May Yahweh look upon you and judge, for you have made us abhorrent in the eyes of Pharaoh and his servants. You have placed a sword in their hand to kill us. Moses, shaken and burdened, turned back to Yahweh and cried out, O Adonai, why have you brought harm upon this people? Why have you sent me? From the moment I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has only harmed this people. And you have not delivered them at all. Yahweh spoke again to Moses, answering the cry he had brought in anguish. His voice did not tremble, his promise had not faded. Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. With a strong hand he will let them go. Indeed, with a strong hand he will drive them out of his land. Then Elohim declared to Moses, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, the God who suffices. But by my name Yahweh, I was not fully known to them. I established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they sojourned. And now I have heard the groaning of the sons of Israel, whom the Egyptians have enslaved, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore say to the sons of Israel, I am Yahweh. I will bring you out from under the burdens of Egypt. I will deliver you from bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my people, and I will be your Elohim. Then you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brings you out from the heavy burdens of Egypt. And I will bring you to the land I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am Yahweh. So Moses went and spoke these words to the sons of Israel, but they did not listen to him. Their spirits were crushed. The weight of slavery pressed like stone upon their hearts, and they could not lift their eyes to hope. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses again. Go, speak to Pharaoh king of Egypt, that he may let the sons of Israel go out of his land. But Moses replied, Behold, the sons of Israel will not listen to me. How then shall Pharaoh listen to me, a man of uncircumcised lips? But Yahweh did not relent. He gave Moses and Aaron his commands concerning the sons of Israel and concerning Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They were to lead the people out from the land of their affliction. And the word of Yahweh pressed forward through history. A record was given, a lineage traced like a sacred thread through the generations of promise. These were the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, Enoch, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi, families from Reuben's line. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Saul, the son of a Canaanite woman. And the sons of Levi, by their generations, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived 137 years. From Gershon came Libni and Shimei, each according to their families. From Kohath came Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived 133 years. From Merari came Mali and Mushi. These were the clans of the Levites listed in their generations. Amram took his aunt Jochebed as his wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses and their sister Miriam. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Ishar were Korah, Nepheg, and Zikri. The sons of Uzziel were Mishael, Elzaphan, and Sithri. Aaron took Elisheba, daughter of Amminadab and sister of Nahshon, to be his wife. She bore him Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah were Asir, Elkanah, and Abiasaph. These were the families of the Korahites. Eleazar, son of Aaron, took one of the daughters of Putiel to be his wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These were the heads of the Levite families, by their fathers' houses. This Aaron and this Moses were the ones to whom Yahweh said, "Bring the sons of Israel out from the land of Egypt, according to their divisions." They were the ones who stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to speak in the name of Yahweh, and to lead his people out. This Moses and this Aaron. It was on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt that he said to him again, "I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh all that I speak to you." But Moses said once more, "Behold, I am uncircumcised of lips. How will Pharaoh listen to me?" Yahweh said to Moses, "See, I have made you as an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother shall be your prophet. You will speak all that I command you, and Aaron will speak to Pharaoh, so that he may release the sons of Israel from his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and I will multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. Even when Pharaoh will not listen, I will stretch out my hand and bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand against them and bring my people out from their midst." So Moses and Aaron did just as Yahweh commanded. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they stood before Pharaoh. Yahweh then said to them, "When Pharaoh says, 'Prove yourselves with a miracle,' say to Aaron, 'Take your rod and throw it down before Pharaoh. It will become a serpent.'" Moses and Aaron entered Pharaoh's court and did just as Yahweh had instructed. Aaron threw down his rod before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a living serpent. But Pharaoh summoned his wise men and sorcerers, Egypt's sacred scribes, and by their occult arts they did the same. Each man cast down his rod, and they became serpents. Yet Aaron's rod swallowed their rods, one by one. Still, Pharaoh's heart was firm. He would not listen, just as Yahweh had said. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses again. "Pharaoh's heart is glorified and stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. Rise early in the morning and stand by the riverbank, for Pharaoh will come down to the water. Take in your hand the rod that turned into a serpent and say to him, 'Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened.' Thus says Yahweh, By this you will know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will strike the waters of the Nile with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. The fish in the river will die, the river will stink, and the Egyptians will not be able to drink its waters." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, Take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their streams, canals, ponds, and pools of water, that they may become blood. There shall be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, even in vessels of wood and stone." Moses and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded. Aaron lifted the rod and struck the waters of the Nile in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and all the waters of the river turned to blood. The fish in the river died. The water reeked and festered, and the Egyptians could not drink it. Blood filled the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt, using their secret arts, did the same. Pharaoh's heart was unmoved. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as Yahweh had spoken. He turned and went back into his house, and he did not set his heart even on this. Meanwhile, the Egyptians dug along the banks of the river for fresh water to drink, for they could not drink from the bloodied Nile. And 7 days passed after Yahweh struck the waters of Egypt. Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, let my people go, that they may serve me. But if you refuse to release them, I will strike your land with frogs.'" The warning carried no hesitation. "The Nile will swarm with frogs," Yahweh declared. "They will enter your house and your bedroom, your bed and your ovens and kneading troughs. They will ascend upon you, your people, and all your servants." At Yahweh's command, Moses instructed Aaron to stretch out his hand with the rod over the rivers and ponds. Aaron obeyed, and the waters of Egypt stirred. Frogs emerged in waves, climbing from the depths and covering the land. They were in every room, in every breath. Egypt crawled with judgment. Yet Pharaoh's magicians, by their secret arts, did the same. They too summoned frogs, but they could not make them depart. Pharaoh, troubled by the unrelenting plague, summoned Moses and Aaron. "Plead with Yahweh," he said, "that he may take the frogs away from me and my people. Then I will let the people go, so they may sacrifice to Yahweh." Moses replied, "Tell me when I should plead for you and your servants, that the frogs may be removed from your houses and remain only in the river." Pharaoh said, "Tomorrow." Moses answered, "So be it, that you may know there is no one like Yahweh our Elohim. The frogs will be gone from your homes, your people, and your officials. Only in the Nile will they remain." Moses and Aaron left Pharaoh's presence. Moses cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh acted according to his word. The frogs died in houses, villages, and fields. They were gathered into heaps, and the land stank under their weight. But when Pharaoh saw that relief had come, his heart grew hard again. He would not listen, just as Yahweh had foretold. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Tell Aaron to stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, and it will become lice throughout Egypt." Aaron obeyed, and he struck the ground. The dust rose, and the lice came alive, spreading over man and beast. Everywhere the dust had settled, it now stirred with tiny torment. The magicians tried to replicate the sign through their occult arts, but they could not. The plague was beyond their reach. Then the magicians turned to Pharaoh and said, "This is the finger of Elohim." But Pharaoh's heart remained steadfast. He would not heed them. Once more Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Rise early and meet Pharaoh as he goes down to the water. Say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, let my people go, that they may serve me. If you do not, I will send swarms of flies upon you, your servants, your people, and your homes. The houses of Egypt will be filled, and even the ground will swarm. But I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people dwell. No flies shall be there, that you may know I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. I will make a distinction between my people and your people. This sign will happen tomorrow." And Yahweh did just as he said. Dense swarms of flies invaded Egypt. They filled Pharaoh's palace, overwhelmed his officials, and poured into every house. The land was ruined by the corruption they brought. Pharaoh again summoned Moses and Aaron. "Go," he said, "sacrifice to your Elohim, but do it here, in the land." But Moses answered, "It is not proper to do so, for what we sacrifice to Yahweh is detestable in the eyes of the Egyptians. If we offer such sacrifices before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go a 3-day journey into the wilderness, just as Yahweh has commanded us." Pharaoh relented in word. "I will let you go and sacrifice to Yahweh in the wilderness, but do not go far. Plead for me." Moses replied, "Behold, I will go out and entreat Yahweh that the flies may depart tomorrow, but let Pharaoh not deal falsely again, refusing to let the people go to sacrifice." Moses left Pharaoh and pleaded with Yahweh, and Yahweh removed the swarms from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. not one remained. Yet even then, Pharaoh hardened his heart. He would not let the people go. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Go into Pharaoh and speak to him. Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you continue to refuse, and still hold them fast, behold, the hand of Yahweh will fall upon your livestock in the field, upon the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks, with a very grievous plague." Yet Yahweh made a distinction. Of all that belongs to the children of Israel, not a single animal shall die. He set a time, saying, "Tomorrow Yahweh will do this thing in the land." And so it came to pass. All the livestock of Egypt perished, yet not one of the animals belonging to Israel died. Pharaoh sent messengers to confirm it, and indeed, not even one of Israel's cattle had fallen. Yet Pharaoh's heart was hardened still. He would not let the people go. Then Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, "Take handfuls of soot from the kiln, and let Moses throw it toward the heavens in the sight of Pharaoh. It will become fine dust over all the land of Egypt, and will turn into boils breaking out in sores on both man and beast." So they took soot from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh. Moses cast it toward the heavens, and it became boils bursting into pustules upon both man and beast. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the sores were upon them too. But Yahweh made Pharaoh's heart unyielding, and he did not listen, just as Yahweh had said. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues upon your heart, and upon your servants, and upon your people, so that you may know there is none like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been wiped from the earth. But for this very reason I have preserved you, to show you my power, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Still, you exalt yourself against my people, and refuse to let them go. Behold, tomorrow at this time I will cause a very heavy hail to fall, such as has never been seen in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Therefore, send now, and bring your livestock and all that you have in the field to shelter. Every man and beast found in the field and not brought into the house will die when the hail falls upon them." Some among Pharaoh's servants feared the word of Yahweh and brought their servants and livestock into shelter. But others did not set their heart to the word of Yahweh, and they left their people and cattle exposed in the field. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, that hail may fall in all the land of Egypt, on man, on beast, and on every plant in the field." So Moses raised his rod toward the sky. Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and fire ran down upon the earth. Yahweh rained hail upon Egypt, hail mixed with fire flashing through it. It was severe beyond measure, such as had not been seen in Egypt since its beginning. The hail struck down everything in the field, man, beast, and every herb of the field, and shattered every tree. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel dwelt, there was no hail. Then Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron and said to them, "This time I have sinned. Yahweh is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Plead with Yahweh, for there has been enough of this thunder and hail. I will let you go. You shall not remain any longer." Moses replied, "As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will spread out my hands to Yahweh. The thunder will cease, and the hail will be no more, that you may know the earth is Yahweh's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear Yahweh Elohim." The flax and barley had been destroyed, for the barley was in the ear and the flax in bud. But the wheat and spelt were not struck, for they ripen later. Then Moses went out from Pharaoh, out of the city, He spread out his hands to Yahweh, and the thunder and hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured upon the earth. But when Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had stopped, he sinned yet again and hardened his heart, he and his servants. So Pharaoh's heart was made unyielding, and he did not let the people of Israel go, just as Yahweh had spoken through Moses. Yahweh said to Moses, "Go into Pharaoh, for I myself have hardened his heart and the hearts of his courtiers, that I may display these signs of mine among them, and so that you may recount in the ears of your son and your son's son all that I have done in Egypt, and the signs I have worked among them, so that you may know that I am Yahweh." So Moses and Aaron went before Pharaoh and said, "Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you continue to refuse, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory. They will cover the face of the land so that no one will be able to see the ground. They will devour what little remains from the hail, every green thing that still grows. They will fill your houses, the houses of your servants and of all Egypt, something your fathers and forefathers have never seen since the day they first walked this land." And Moses turned and went out from Pharaoh's presence. Pharaoh's courtiers said to him, "How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve Yahweh their Elohim. Do you not yet see that Egypt is ruined?" Moses and Aaron were brought back, and Pharaoh said to them, "Go, serve Yahweh your Elohim. But who are those going?" Moses answered, "We will go with our young and our old, with our sons and daughters, with our flocks and herds, for we are to hold a feast to Yahweh." Pharaoh said, "May Yahweh be with you if ever I let you and your little ones go. Clearly you have some evil purpose in mind. No, only the men may go and serve Yahweh, for that is what you desire." And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over Egypt, so that the locusts may come and consume all the vegetation of the land, all that the hail has left." Moses stretched out his rod, and Yahweh brought an east wind across the land all that day and night. In the morning, the wind had brought the locusts. They swarmed over the entire land of Egypt, settling in dense masses across all the territory. Never before had there been such a locust plague, nor would there be again. They covered the surface of the ground until it was dark. They devoured all that was left from the hail, every tree, every blade of grass. Nothing green remained anywhere in Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "I have sinned against Yahweh, your Elohim, and against you. Please, forgive my sin just this once, and entreat Yahweh to take this death from me." Moses went out and pleaded with Yahweh. Yahweh turned the wind into a very strong west wind, which drove the locusts into the Sea of Reeds. Not a single locust remained in all Egypt. But Yahweh made Pharaoh's heart unyielding, and he would not let the sons of Israel go. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, that darkness may come upon the land of Egypt, a darkness so thick it can be felt." Moses did so, and a deep gloom fell over Egypt for 3 days. No one could see another, nor did anyone rise from their place for those days. Yet all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. Pharaoh called Moses and said, "Go, serve Yahweh. Only let your flocks and herds stay behind. Your little ones may go with you." But Moses said, "You must also let us take sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may present them to Yahweh, our Elohim. Our livestock must go with us. There must not be a hoof left behind, for we will not know what we are to offer to Yahweh until we arrive there." But Yahweh hardened Pharaoh's heart once again, and he refused to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get away from me. Take care never to appear before me again, for on the day you see my face, you shall die." Moses replied, "You have spoken truly. I will not see your face again." Yahweh said to Moses, "One more plague I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. When he finally lets you go, he will not merely send you away, he will drive you out completely." Then Yahweh instructed Moses, "Speak now in the ears of the people, and tell every man to ask from his neighbor and every woman from her neighbor articles of silver and gold." Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and they did as instructed. Moreover, the man Moses had become very great in Egypt, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants and in the eyes of the people alike. Moses now declared, "Thus says Yahweh, about midnight I will go out in the midst of Egypt. Every firstborn in the land shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl grinding at the mill, and even the firstborn of the cattle. There will be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as has never been, nor ever will be again. But against any of the sons of Israel, not even a dog shall growl, whether against man or beast, so that you may know Yahweh distinguishes between Egypt and Israel. Then all your courtiers shall come down to me and bow before me, saying, 'Go, you and all the people who follow you.' And after that, I will go." Burning with anger, Moses turned and left Pharaoh's presence. Yahweh said to him, "Pharaoh will not listen to you, in order that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt." And so Moses and Aaron performed all these signs before Pharaoh. But Yahweh made Pharaoh's heart hard, and he did not let the sons of Israel go out of his land. In Egypt, Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, establishing a new beginning. "This month shall mark the beginning of months for you, the first of the year." He commanded them to instruct the entire congregation of Israel. On the 10th day of the month, each household was to take a year-old, unblemished male lamb from either the sheep or the goats. If a household was too small to consume an entire lamb, they were to join with a neighbor, carefully measuring portions according to each one's need. The lamb was to be kept until the 14th day of the month. Then, at twilight, the entire assembly of Israel was to slaughter their lambs. They were to take some of the blood and apply it to the 2 doorposts and the lintel of each house where the lamb was eaten. That night they were to roast the lamb over fire, never boiled or eaten raw, and consume it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Nothing was to be left until morning. Any remains were to be burned. They were to eat it in haste, with belts fastened, sandals on their feet, and staffs in hand. For this was Yahweh's Passover. On that night, Yahweh himself would pass through Egypt, striking down every firstborn, human and beast, and bringing judgment upon all the gods of Egypt. But where the blood marked the doorposts, Yahweh would pass over, and no harm would come to those households. "This day," Yahweh said, "shall be a memorial for you, a festival to be kept throughout your generations, an everlasting ordinance." For 7 days they were to eat unleavened bread, removing all yeast from their homes. Whoever ate leavened bread during that time would be cut off from the community of Israel, whether native-born or sojourner. The 1st and 7th days were to be sacred assemblies, days of rest except for preparing food. Yahweh commanded that this observance be held each year, for on that very day he was bringing his people out of Egypt. From the evening of the 14th day to the evening of the 21st, they were to eat only unleavened bread. Moses called together the elders of Israel and gave them instructions. "Select your lambs, slaughter the Passover, and apply the blood to the lintel and doorpost with a bunch of hyssop. No one must leave the house until morning." When Yahweh passed through Egypt to strike, he would see the blood and prevent the destroyer from entering their homes. This command was to be observed as a lasting ordinance for them and for their descendants. In generations to come, when children asked, "What does this service mean?" they were to respond, "It is the Passover sacrifice to Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the sons of Israel in Egypt striking the Egyptians and sparing us." The people bowed down in reverence and did all as Yahweh had commanded. At midnight, Yahweh struck down every firstborn in Egypt, from Pharaoh's own son to the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, and even the firstborn of the livestock. There was a cry throughout Egypt, a great cry such as had never been heard before, for there was not a single household without death. In the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. "Rise," he said, "go from among my people, you and the sons of Israel. Go, serve Yahweh as you have said. Take your flocks, your herds, go, and bless me also." The Egyptians urged the Israelites to leave quickly, fearing for their lives. The people of Israel left in haste, their dough still unleavened, carrying their kneading bowls wrapped in cloth on their shoulders. They had also obeyed Moses' word and requested silver, gold, and clothing from the Egyptians, who gave freely. In this way, Yahweh caused his people to find favor, and they plundered Egypt. About 600,000 Israelite men, along with women, children, and a mixed multitude, journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. They brought their flocks and herds and baked unleavened cakes from the dough they carried. There was no time for leaven to rise. They had been thrust out of Egypt without delay or preparation. The time the sons of Israel had lived in Egypt was 430 years, and on that very day Yahweh brought them out by their hosts. That night was to be observed, a night of keeping watch for Yahweh who delivered them. It was a night to be remembered and kept by all generations of Israel. Yahweh also gave laws concerning the Passover. No foreigner was to eat it unless a male servant had been circumcised. Sojourners and hired workers were excluded unless brought into the covenant. The meal was to be eaten in one house, not taken outside, and no bones were to be broken. The entire congregation of Israel was to keep it. If a sojourner wished to join, he and his household were to be circumcised and treated as natives. One law was to apply to both. Thus, the sons of Israel did just as Yahweh had commanded through Moses and Aaron. And it came to pass on that very day that Yahweh brought them out of the land of Egypt, a people no longer enslaved, but set apart by the blood that covered them. Yahweh spoke again to Moses, commanding him, "Consecrate to me every firstborn male who opens the womb among the sons of Israel, both of man and beast. It is mine." This command marked the beginning of a deeper sanctification of Israel's identity, rooted in remembrance and worship. Moses turned to the people and said, "Remember this day, the day you came out from Egypt, from the house of servitude. For with a mighty hand Yahweh brought you out from this place. Let no leavened bread be eaten." It was the month of Abib, and on this very day, the people began their departure from Egypt. Moses continued, foretelling the fulfillment of the promise made to their ancestors. "When Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, a land flowing with milk and honey, then you shall observe this service in this month. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th you shall hold a festival to Yahweh. Let no leaven be seen among you in all your territory." He instructed them to teach their children, saying, "On that day you shall tell your son, 'It is because of what Yahweh did for me when he brought me out of Egypt.'" These practices were to be a sign on the hand and a reminder between the eyes, that the law of Yahweh might always be on their lips. For with a mighty hand Yahweh had delivered them. They were to observe this ordinance every year at its appointed time. Further, Moses relayed that once Yahweh had brought them into the land of the Canaanite, they were to dedicate every firstborn male, both of man and beast, to Yahweh. Every firstborn of a donkey was to be redeemed with a lamb. If not redeemed, its neck was to be broken. Likewise, every firstborn son was to be redeemed. And when your son asks you, 'What does this mean?' you shall say to him, 'With a mighty hand Yahweh brought us out of Egypt, from the house of bondage. When Pharaoh hardened himself against letting us go, Yahweh struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. Therefore, I sacrifice to Yahweh all firstborn males that open the womb, but my sons I redeem." This observance was to be like a mark on their hand and between their eyes, a living testimony that with a mighty hand Yahweh had delivered them. Now, when Pharaoh finally let the people go, Elohim did not lead them by the shortest path, which passed through the land of the Philistines, though it was near. Elohim knew that if the people encountered war too soon, they might lose heart and return to Egypt. Instead, he led them by the wilderness road toward the Sea of Reeds. The people marched out in battle formation, ready yet shielded from immediate conflict. As they journeyed, Moses carried with him the bones of Joseph, fulfilling the oath Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear. "Elohim will surely take notice of you, and you shall carry my bones up from here with you." So from Ramesses they journeyed to Succoth, and from there they camped at Etham, on the edge of the wilderness, and Yahweh went before them. By day he led them in a pillar of cloud to show them the way, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so they could travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Yahweh spoke to Moses, instructing him to turn the people back so that they would encamp near Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, directly across from Baal-Zephon. The location was deliberate. Yahweh declared that Pharaoh would think the Israelites were lost and trapped by the wilderness, and that he would harden Pharaoh's heart one last time. Pharaoh would pursue them, but through this, Yahweh would glorify himself, and all Egypt would know that he is Yahweh. So the Israelites camped by the sea. But when Pharaoh was informed that the people had fled, his heart and the hearts of his officials were turned. They cried out, "What have we done? We've let Israel go from serving us." Pharaoh swiftly ordered his chariot, took his best troops, 600 choice chariots and every chariot of Egypt with officers, and gave chase. The Israelites had gone out boldly, but soon they looked back and saw the Egyptian army advancing. Terror seized them, and they cried out to Yahweh. In fear and bitterness, they turned on Moses. "Were there not enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the wilderness? Didn't we tell you to leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better to serve them than to die out here." But Moses stood firm and said, "Do not fear. Stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will work for you today. The Egyptians you see now, you will never see them again. Yahweh will fight for you. You only need to be silent." Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people to go forward, and you, lift up your rod, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. The Israelites shall go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so they follow you in, and through this I will be glorified, over Pharaoh, over his chariots, and over his horsemen. Then Egypt will know that I am Yahweh." Then the angel of Elohim, who had gone before the camp of Israel, moved behind them. The pillar of cloud also shifted to stand between Israel and Egypt. Darkness fell on the Egyptians, while light illuminated the night for the Israelites. All through the night, neither side approached the other. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh drove back the waters with a strong east wind that blew all night. The sea was divided, and dry ground appeared. The waters stood like walls on their right and their left as the people of Israel crossed through the midst of the sea. Then Pharaoh's army plunged in after them, all his horses, chariots, and horsemen. In the morning watch, Yahweh looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud and threw the Egyptian army into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots, making them drag heavily through the seabed. Realizing they were fighting against the hand of the living God, the Egyptians cried out, "Let us flee from Israel. Yahweh is fighting for them against us." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so the waters may return upon the Egyptians." Moses obeyed. As the sun began to rise, the sea returned to its normal depth. The Egyptians tried to flee, but Yahweh swept them away in the returning tide. Not one of Pharaoh's soldiers survived. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, the walls of water still standing firm on both sides. That day, Yahweh delivered Israel from the hand of Egypt. When the people saw the Egyptians' bodies lying on the shore, they understood the mighty hand of Yahweh. The people feared Yahweh. They believed in him and in Moses, his servant. In the immediate aftermath of their miraculous deliverance, Moses and the sons of Israel lifted their voices together in a song to Yahweh. Their hearts overflowed in worship as they sang, "Let me sing to Yahweh, for he is supremely exalted. Horse and rider he has cast into the sea." Their song was not just a melody of triumph, but a declaration of truth. "Yah is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my El. I will glorify him. The Elohim of my father, I will exalt him. Yahweh," they proclaimed, "is a warrior. This is his very name." Pharaoh's chariots and army had been hurled into the sea. His elite officers sank like stones into the depths of the sea of reeds. The deep waters swallowed them. The waves, in response to Yahweh's breath, rose like walls, and the enemy drowned in the heart of the sea. His right hand, mighty in power, shattered the foe. They recalled how the enemy had boasted, "I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil." But Yahweh responded with a mere breath, and the waters covered them. They vanished like lead in the great waters. And then came the question, rising like incense from redeemed lips. "Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders?" He had stretched out his right hand, and the earth swallowed the enemy. In his faithful love, he had led his redeemed. In his strength, he would bring them to his holy dwelling. The nations would hear of this and tremble. The news would shake Philistia, confuse the princes of Edom, seize the leaders of Moab with terror, and melt the people of Canaan with fear. The dread of Yahweh would fall upon them like a heavy silence until his people passed through, the people he had purchased with his own hand. They sang of the future too. Yahweh would bring them to the mountain of his inheritance, to the sanctuary he had established. He would reign forever and ever. And then, as if the echo of the sea still rang in their ears, the story was recalled again. Pharaoh's horses and chariots had entered the sea, but Yahweh had returned the waters over them. His people, though, had walked on dry ground, untouched. Then Miriam the prophetess, Aaron's sister, rose, tambourine in hand, and the women followed her with tambourines and dancing. She echoed the song, "Sing to Yahweh, for he is gloriously exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea." But worship soon gave way to weariness. Moses led Israel away from the Sea of Reeds into the wilderness of Shur. For 3 days they wandered through the desert, finding no water. When they came to a place called Marah, they found water, but it was bitter and undrinkable. That's why it was named Marah, which means bitterness. The people complained bitterly against Moses. "What shall we drink?" Moses cried out to Yahweh. Yahweh showed him a tree. Moses threw it into the bitter waters, and the waters became sweet. In that moment, Yahweh not only provided for them physically, but also tested their hearts. There, he established a statute and instruction, saying, "If you diligently listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, if you give ear to his commands and keep all his laws, then I will not bring upon you the diseases I placed on Egypt, for I am Yahweh, your healer." Finally they came to Elim. There, amid the dryness of the wilderness, they found rest, 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. So they camped there by the waters. From the oasis of Elim, the entire congregation of the sons of Israel journeyed onward into the wilderness of Sin, which lay between Elim and Sinai. It was now the 15th day of the second month since they had departed from the land of Egypt. But the gratitude of deliverance gave way to anxiety, and hunger stirred discontent. The people murmured against Moses and Aaron, saying, "If only we had died by the hand of Yahweh in Egypt, where we sat by the pots of meat and ate bread to the full. But you have brought us into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Yahweh responded not with rebuke, but provision. He said to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from the heavens for you. The people shall go out each day and gather a portion for that day, so that I may test whether they will walk in my law or not. On the 6th day they shall gather twice as much." Moses and Aaron addressed the people. "This evening you will know it was Yahweh who brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see his glory, for he has heard your complaints. But who are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against Yahweh." As Aaron spoke to the entire congregation, they turned toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses again, saying, "I have heard the murmurings of the sons of Israel. Tell them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim." That evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, when the dew had lifted, there was on the surface of the wilderness a fine, flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. The people were puzzled and said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know. Moses said, "This is the bread that Yahweh has given you to eat." He instructed them, "Gather of it, each man as much as he needs, an omer per person, according to the number in each household." The people did as they were told. Some gathered more, some less. But when it was measured by the omer, each had exactly enough. No one had too much, no one lacked. Each gathered what he needed. Moses warned them not to keep any of it until the next morning. Yet some did not listen, and what they kept bred worms and stank. Moses was angry with them. So each morning they gathered it, just enough for the day, and as the sun grew hot, it melted away. On the 6th day, they gathered double, 2 omers per person. The leaders of the congregation reported it to Moses, and he said, "This is what Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is a day of rest, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you will boil. Whatever is left over, store it until morning." They did so, and this time it did not rot or breed worms. Moses told them, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. You will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day there will be none." Nevertheless, on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but found nothing. Yahweh said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place on the 7th day." And so the people rested on the 7th day. The house of Israel called the bread manna. It was like white coriander seed, and its taste was like wafers made with honey. Then Moses said, "This is what Yahweh has commanded. Fill an omer of it to be kept for future generations, that they may see the bread I gave you to eat in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." So Moses told Aaron to take a jar, fill it with an omer of manna, and place it before Yahweh to be kept throughout their generations. Aaron set it before the testimony, as Yahweh had commanded Moses. The sons of Israel ate the manna for 40 years, until they came to a land that was settled, even to the edge of the land of Canaan. The entire congregation of the sons of Israel continued their journey from the wilderness of Sin, moving from place to place as Yahweh commanded. They encamped at Rephidim, but there was no water there for the people to drink. Thirst quickly gave rise to tension. The people turned against Moses, demanding, "Give us water so we may drink." Moses responded, "Why do you contend with me? Why do you test Yahweh?" But their thirst only grew more desperate. They grumbled, "Why did you bring us up from Egypt? Was it to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Moses cried out to Yahweh in distress, "What shall I do with this people? They are nearly ready to stone me." Yahweh answered with calm authority. "Go on ahead of the people," he said, "and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Take also in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and the people will drink." Moses obeyed. Before the eyes of the elders of Israel, he struck the rock, and water flowed. The place was named Massah and Meribah, meaning testing and quarreling, because of the strife of the Israelites and their testing of Yahweh, saying, "Is Yahweh among us or not?" But before the people could settle, another trial came upon them. Amalek came and launched an attack against Israel there at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose men for us and go out to fight Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with the staff of Elohim in my hand." Joshua did as Moses instructed and led the men into battle, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur ascended the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, Israel prevailed. But when he let his hands down, Amalek began to gain the upper hand. When his arms grew weary, they placed a stone beneath him so he could sit. Aaron and Hur stood on either side, supporting his hands, one on each side, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. Through this united act of intercession and obedience, Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Write this as a memorial in a scroll and recite it in the ears of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heavens." In response, Moses built an altar and named it Yahweh Nissi, Yahweh is my banner. He declared, "A hand is against the throne of Yah. Yahweh will wage war against Amalek from generation to generation." Jethro, the priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law, heard of everything Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel, how Yahweh had delivered his people from Egypt. Moved by the report, Jethro took Zipporah, Moses' wife, whom Moses had previously sent away, along with her 2 sons. One was named Gershom, for Moses had said, "I have become a sojourner in a foreign land." The other was Eleazar, for he had declared, "The Elohim of my father was my help, and he delivered me from Pharaoh's sword." Jethro came to Moses in the wilderness, where the Israelites were camped near the mountain of the One, Elohim. He sent word ahead to Moses, "Behold, your father-in-law Jethro is coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons." Moses rose and went out to meet him. He bowed down, kissed him, and after greeting each other and inquiring of each other's welfare, they entered the tent. Inside, Moses recounted all that Yahweh had done to Pharaoh and to Egypt on behalf of Israel, all the hardships they had faced along the way, and how Yahweh had delivered them through it all. Jethro rejoiced in all the goodness Yahweh had shown to Israel. He praised Yahweh, saying, "Blessed be Yahweh, who has rescued you from the hand of Egypt and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued this people from under the oppression of Egypt. Now I know that Yahweh is greater than all Elohim, because of how he acted against them in their arrogance." In worship, Jethro offered burnt offerings and sacrifices to Elohim. Aaron and the elders of Israel came, and together they shared a meal with Jethro in the presence of the One, Elohim. The next day, Jethro observed Moses at work. From morning until evening, Moses sat as judge, while the people stood before him waiting their turn. Seeing this, Jethro asked, "What is this that you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, while all the people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses replied, "Because the people come to me to inquire of Elohim. When they have a dispute, I decide between a man and his neighbor, and I make known to them the statutes and laws of the one, Elohim." But Jethro was not impressed. "What you're doing is not good," he said plainly. "You will surely wear yourself out, and the people with you. This task is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and may Elohim be with you. You must represent the people before Elohim and bring their cases to him. Teach them the statutes and the laws. Show them the way they must walk and the work they must do." Jethro continued, "But also, from among the people, select capable men who fear Elohim, who are trustworthy and hate dishonest gain. Appoint them as leaders over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them judge the people at all times. They can handle every small matter themselves, but bring every difficult case to you. That will make your burden lighter, because they will share it with you. If you do this, and Elohim so commands, you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their place in peace." Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and followed his counsel. He selected capable men from all Israel and appointed them as heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. These men judged the people at all times. They brought only the difficult cases to Moses. All the minor matters they handled themselves. When all was established, Moses bid farewell to his father-in-law. Jethro returned to his own land, leaving behind a nation now strengthened not only by deliverance, but by wise and ordered leadership. In the 3rd month after the sons of Israel had gone out from Egypt, on that very day, they entered the wilderness of Sinai. From Rephidim they journeyed and came into the wilderness and encamped before the mountain. There, at the foot of Sinai, Israel set up camp, the mountain towering before them, a place marked from of old by the presence of the one, Elohim. Moses ascended the mountain, and Yahweh called to him from the heights, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the sons of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, how I bore you on wings of eagles and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will surely listen to my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be mine, a special possession above all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." These were the words Moses was to speak to the sons of Israel. Moses came down and called for the elders of the people. He set before them all the words that Yahweh had spoken. The people responded with one voice, "All that Yahweh has spoken we will do." Moses returned the words of the people to Yahweh. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, so that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may believe in you forever." Moses conveyed the response of the people, and Yahweh instructed him, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Let them wash their garments and be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day, Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai." Moses was to set bounds around the mountain, warning the people not to go up or touch even its edge. Whoever touched it, man or beast, would surely die. No hand was to touch such a one. They were to be stoned or shot through, whether human or animal. Only when the long trumpet blast was heard might they approach. Moses descended and did as Yahweh had spoken. He consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. He said to them, "Be ready for the 3rd day. Do not come near a woman." On the morning of the 3rd day, thunder cracked and lightning flashed. A thick cloud settled upon the mountain, and a trumpet blast grew steadily louder. The entire camp trembled. Moses brought the people out to meet Elohim, and they stood at the base of the mountain. Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke, for Yahweh had descended upon it in fire. Its smoke rose like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked violently. The trumpet sounded ever louder, and Moses spoke. Elohim answered him in a voice of thunder. Yahweh descended to the summit of Sinai and called Moses up. Moses ascended, but Yahweh said to him, "Go down and warn the people lest they break through to gaze and many perish. Even the priests who approach must consecrate themselves, or I will break out against them." Moses replied, "The people cannot come up, for you warned us, saying, 'Set limits around the mountain and make it holy.'" But Yahweh said again, "Go down, then come back up, you and Aaron with you. But let not the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahweh, lest I break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and spoke to them, bearing the command of the One who dwells in fire and cloud. Then Elohim spoke. All these words thundered forth from the cloud, saying, "I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. You shall have no other Elohim besides me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, nor any representation of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, Yahweh your Elohim, am a jealous El. I visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. But I show loving kindness to thousands who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not lift up the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vanity, for Yahweh will not hold guiltless anyone who uses his name with emptiness. Remember the Sabbath day to set it apart as holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yahweh your Elohim. On it you shall do no work, you, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, your livestock, or the sojourner within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. All the people saw the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain enveloped in smoke. Trembling, they stood at a distance. Overwhelmed, they said to Moses, "Speak with us yourself, and we will listen, but do not let Elohim speak with us, or we will die." Moses answered them, "Do not be afraid. Elohim has come to test you, that the fear of him may be upon you, so that you do not sin." While the people remained at a distance, Moses drew near to the thick darkness where Elohim was. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "You shall speak to the sons of Israel and say, 'You yourselves have seen that I have spoken to you from the heavens. Do not make for yourselves gods of silver or gods of gold to stand beside me. Do not fashion them. You shall make an altar of earth for me, and there you shall offer your burnt offerings and peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. If you build me an altar of stones, do not shape it with tools. If you use a chisel on it, you will have profaned it, and you shall not ascend my altar by steps, so that your nakedness is not exposed upon it." Yahweh gave ordinances to Moses for the people of Israel, to establish justice among them. If a Hebrew servant was purchased, he was to serve for 6 years, and in the 7th he would go free without payment. If he entered alone, he would leave alone. If he had a wife, she would leave with him. But if his master had given him a wife and she bore children, the wife and children remained with the master, and the man would leave alone, unless he declared his love for his master, his wife, and his children, and refused freedom. Then he would be brought before Elohim and have his ear pierced with an awl at the doorpost, and he would serve for life. When a man sold his daughter as a servant, she was not to be released as male servants were. If she displeased her master who had designated her for himself, she was to be redeemed. He was not permitted to sell her to a foreign people, since he had acted treacherously toward her. If he designated her for his son, he must treat her as a daughter. If he took another wife, he must not withhold food, clothing, or marital rights. If he failed in these, she would go free without payment. If a man struck another so that he died, he was to be put to death. But if it was not done with intent, and Yahweh had allowed it, a place of refuge would be appointed for him. However, if a man deliberately plotted to kill another, he was to be taken even from the altar and put to death. Anyone who struck or cursed his father or mother was also to be put to death. Likewise, one who kidnapped another person, whether he sold him or was caught with him, was to die. If men quarreled and one struck another with a stone or fist, but the man did not die and recovered, the striker would not be guilty of murder, but must compensate for the victim's loss of time and ensure his complete healing. If a man struck his male or female servant with a rod and the servant died, the master would be punished. But if the servant survived a day or two, the master would not be punished, for the servant was his property. If men struggled and injured a pregnant woman so that she gave birth prematurely without injury, the offender was to pay a fine as determined by the woman's husband and judges. But if injury resulted, the penalty was life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. If a servant's eye or tooth was struck and lost, the servant was to be set free as compensation. If a bull gored a man or woman to death, the bull was to be stoned and its flesh not eaten. But the owner was not liable unless the bull had a history of goring and the owner failed to restrain it. Then the owner too was to be put to death, unless a ransom was imposed, which he must pay in full. This ruling applied whether the victim was a son or daughter. If a bull gored a male or female servant, the owner was to pay 30 shekels of silver to the servant's master, and the bull was to be stoned. If someone opened or dug a pit and did not cover it, and an animal fell in, the owner of the pit was to compensate the animal's owner, and the dead animal became his. If one man's bull injured another's so that it died, the live bull was to be sold and the money divided, along with the dead animal. But if it was known that the bull was prone to goring and the owner failed to restrain it, then he must pay full restitution, bull for bull, and the dead animal would be his. In continuing to establish a just and merciful society, Yahweh gave Moses further ordinances for Israel. If a man stole an ox or a sheep and slaughtered or sold it, restitution was to be made. 5 oxen for the ox, 4 sheep for the sheep. If the thief was caught breaking in at night and struck fatally, the one who struck him was not guilty of bloodshed. However, if it happened after sunrise, the striker bore blood guilt. The thief must make full restitution. If he had nothing, he was to be sold for his theft. If the stolen animal was found alive in his possession, whether ox, donkey, or sheep, he was to repay double. If a man allowed his animal to graze in another's field, he must repay from the best of his own field and vineyard. If a fire broke out and consumed stacked grain or a field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If someone entrusted money or goods to another and they were stolen from that person's house, the thief, if caught, must pay double. If the thief was not found, the owner of the house was to appear before Elohim to determine if he had taken the neighbor's property. In any case of dispute regarding animals, clothing, or any lost item, the matter was to be brought before Elohim. The one found guilty was to repay double. If someone entrusted an animal to another and it died or was injured or taken and there were no witnesses, an oath before Yahweh would settle the matter. If the one keeping it swore he had not taken the animal, the owner accepted the oath and no restitution was needed. But if it was clearly stolen, the keeper must repay. If it was torn by a beast, he had to bring what remained as evidence and was not required to repay. If a man borrowed an animal and it was injured or died while its owner was not present, he must repay. But if the owner was with it, or if it was hired, no repayment was needed. Its loss was covered by the hire. If a man seduced a virgin not engaged to be married, he must pay her bride price and take her as his wife. If her father refused, the man must still pay the bride price. Sorcery was forbidden. An enchantress was not to be allowed to live. Anyone lying with a beast was to be put to death. Sacrifice to other gods was absolutely prohibited. Only Yahweh was to be worshipped. Sojourners, widows, and orphans were to be treated with care and dignity. Yahweh reminded Israel that they too had been sojourners in Egypt. If any of these vulnerable ones were oppressed and cried out, Yahweh would hear, and his wrath would burn. He would strike with the sword, leaving oppressors' wives as widows and their children as orphans. If someone lent money to the poor among Yahweh's people, he was not to act as a moneylender or charge interest. If a garment was taken as collateral, it was to be returned by sunset, for it might be the only covering the person had. If the borrower cried out to Yahweh, he would hear, for he is gracious. Israel was not to curse Elohim or speak evil of a ruler among the people. Offerings from the harvest and winepress were not to be delayed. The firstborn of sons and livestock belonged to Yahweh. A firstborn animal was to stay with its mother for 7 days, and on the 8th day it was to be given to Yahweh. The people were to be holy to Yahweh. They were not to eat meat torn by beasts in the field. It was to be thrown to the dogs. Yahweh continued to instruct Israel through Moses, laying out further commands to shape a society marked by justice, mercy, and covenant faithfulness. The people were warned not to spread false reports or conspire with the wicked. They were not to follow the crowd in wrongdoing, nor allow the influence of the majority to sway justice. Neither favoritism toward the poor, nor partiality in judgment was permitted. Integrity and impartiality were essential. Even enemies were to be treated with righteousness. If someone came across their enemy's stray animal, it was to be returned. If their foe's donkey was collapsed under a burden, they were to help relieve it. Mercy was not to be limited by relationship. Justice for the vulnerable was emphasized. The cause of the needy was not to be perverted, and false charges were to be avoided. The innocent and the righteous were not to be condemned. Bribery was forbidden, for it blinds and corrupts justice. And the sojourner, once Israel's own status in Egypt, was not to be oppressed, because Israel knew what it was to be a stranger. Sabbath laws were reaffirmed. For 6 years the land was to be sown and harvested, but the 7th year was a year of rest, for the land, for the poor, and even for the wild animals. In the same way, Israel was to labor for 6 days, but rest on the 7th. This rhythm brought rest to all, including slaves and sojourners. Yahweh warned them to be vigilant, not even to mention the names of foreign gods, let alone worship them. Israel was to celebrate 3 annual festivals: the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the spring, commemorating their deliverance from Egypt, the Feast of Harvest, marking the first fruits, and the Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year. At these times, all males were to appear before Yahweh. They were not to offer blood sacrifices with leaven or let the fat of offerings remain until morning. The best of their produce was to be brought to Yahweh's house, and they were not to cook a young goat in its mother's milk, a prohibition marking a separation from pagan practices. Yahweh promised his divine presence to go before them. He would send a messenger, his angel, to guard them and lead them to the land he had prepared. They were to obey him, for Yahweh's name was in him. If they listened, Yahweh would oppose their enemies and fight for them. The angel would bring them into the land of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites. Yahweh would blot them out. Israel was not to imitate their religious practices or serve their gods. Their idols and sacred stones were to be destroyed. Israel was to serve only Yahweh, who would bless their food and water and remove sickness from their midst. None would miscarry or be barren, and their days would be complete. Fear would go before Israel. Yahweh would send terror to dismay their enemies and cause them to flee. Even the hornet would go ahead to drive out their foes. But the conquest would not be immediate. It would happen gradually, so the land would not become desolate or overrun by wild animals. Little by little, they would grow in strength and fill the land. The boundaries of their inheritance would stretch from the Sea of Reeds to the Sea of the Philistines, from the wilderness to the great river. Yahweh would hand over the inhabitants, and Israel would drive them out. They were not to make any covenants with them or their gods. If these nations remained, they would become a snare, drawing Israel into sin and idolatry. The call was clear: loyalty to Yahweh alone in all matters of life and worship. Yahweh summoned Moses up the mountain, but not the people. Only Moses was to come near. The rest were to remain at a distance. So Moses descended and relayed to the people all the words and ordinances spoken by Yahweh. In unison, the people responded, "All the words which Yahweh has spoken, we shall do." Then Moses wrote down all Yahweh's words. Early the next morning, he built an altar at the base of the mountain with 12 stone pillars, one for each tribe of Israel. Young men of Israel were sent to offer burnt offerings and peace offerings of bulls to Yahweh. Moses divided the blood from the sacrifices. Half he placed in basins, and half he sprinkled on the altar. He then took the scroll of the covenant and read it aloud to the people. Again they affirmed, "All that Yahweh has spoken, we shall do and hearken to." Upon this affirmation, Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, declaring, "Behold the blood of the covenant which Yahweh contracts with you concerning all these words." Then came a moment of profound mystery. Moses, Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel ascended the mountain. There they saw the Elohim of Israel. Beneath his feet appeared something like a pavement of sapphire, pure and brilliant, like the heavens. Though they beheld God, he did not strike them. Instead, they saw and they ate and drank in his presence. Yahweh then called Moses further up, commanding him to ascend alone, where he would give him the stone tablets, the law and commandments he had written for Israel's instruction. So Moses rose with Joshua, his assistant, and began the ascent. Before leaving, Moses instructed the elders to wait, telling them Aaron and Hur would handle any disputes while he was away. As Moses climbed, the mountain was enveloped in a cloud. The glory of Yahweh covered Mount Sinai, dwelling upon it. For 6 days the cloud concealed the summit. On the 7th day, Yahweh called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites watching below, the glory of Yahweh appeared like a consuming fire atop the mountain. Moses entered the cloud and went up further. There he remained, 40 days and 40 nights, alone with Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses with a new commission. "Tell the Israelites to take for me a heave offering from everyone whose heart is willing." This was to be no forced tax, but a free will contribution, a sacred act of devotion. The offerings were to include gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson-dyed materials, fine linen, goat's hair, reddened ram skins, azure hides, acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for anointing and incense, onyx stones, and other gems for the priestly garments. All this was to build a sanctuary, a sacred dwelling, so that Yahweh might tabernacle in their midst. The design was not left to human imagination. Yahweh showed Moses a precise pattern. a heavenly model for the earthly tabernacle and all its furnishings. They were to follow it exactly. First, the ark, made of acacia wood, overlaid inside and out with pure gold, with a golden rim around it. 4 gold rings were to be fastened to its feet, 2 on each side, with acacia poles overlaid in gold inserted through them to carry it. The ark would house the testimony, the tablets of the covenant Yahweh would give. Above the ark would rest the propitiatory shelter, also of pure gold. Atop it were to be 2 cherubim, hammered from the same piece, 1 on each end. Their wings were to stretch upward, overshadowing the cover, and their faces turned toward it. There, between the cherubim, Yahweh promised to meet with Moses and speak of all his commands for Israel. Next, the table, also of acacia wood overlaid with gold, with a rim and a decorative border. 4 gold rings were to be placed at its corners for poles to carry it. On the table would rest the bread of the presence, always before Yahweh. Then the golden lampstand, forged from a single piece of pure gold. It was to have a central stem and 6 branches, 3 on each side. Each branch would bear 3 almond-shaped cups with buds and blossoms, and the main stem would have 4 cups. 7 lamps in all would sit atop, arranged to cast their light forward. Snuffers and trays were to be made of pure gold as well. All of this, every detail, every measurement, every curve and carving, was to follow the divine pattern shown to Moses on the mountain. The instructions for building the tabernacle continued, and Yahweh gave Moses the exact design for the dwelling place of his presence, a structure set apart, beautiful and ordered in every detail. The tabernacle itself was to be made of 10 panels of finely twisted linen in blue, purple, and crimson yarn, with cherubim skillfully woven into the fabric by a master designer. Each panel measured 28 cubits in length and 4 cubits in width, all of equal size. 5 panels were to be joined together, and another 5 likewise. Along the edges of the end panels, loops of blue were to be made, 50 on each joining edge, to allow them to be connected by 50 gold clasps, so the whole structure would become one unified covering. Over this sanctuary covering, another layer was to be made of 11 curtains of goat's hair for the outer tent. These panels would be longer, 30 cubits each, and also joined in 2 groups, 5 and 6. The 6th panel was to be doubled over the front of the tent. Like the inner curtains, loops were to be made along the joining edges, but this time, copper clasps would fasten them. The overlapping parts were to drape over the rear and sides, covering the sacred structure completely. On top of it all, 2 additional coverings were commanded, one of reddened ram's skins and another of durable azure hides, shielding the tent from the elements. The frame of the tabernacle was to be constructed from standing acacia boards, each 10 cubits high and 1.5 cubits wide. Every board was to have 2 tenons for joining with its neighbor. 20 boards would stand along the south side, and 20 on the north, with 40 silver sockets beneath them, 2 sockets for each board. On the west, at the rear, 6 boards were to be placed, with 2 additional boards for the corners, joined tightly at top and bottom with rings. This would complete the back wall with a total of 8 boards and 16 silver sockets. Bars of acacia wood were to reinforce the structure, 5 bars for each side wall and 5 for the rear. The central bar was to run the length of the wall, passing through rings of gold fixed to each board. All the boards and bars were to be overlaid with gold, forming a richly adorned yet sturdy sanctuary. Inside, a special veil was to be crafted of blue, purple, and crimson yarn, and fine linen, embroidered with cherubim, again the work of a skilled artisan. This veil would hang from 4 gold-overlaid acacia columns, set in silver sockets. It would divide the sacred space, separating the holy place from the Holy of Holies. Behind the veil, the Ark of the Testimony with its propitiatory cover was to be placed, the innermost chamber of the divine presence. Outside the veil, the table for the bread of the presence was to be placed on the north side, and the golden lampstand opposite it on the south. At the entrance to the tabernacle, a screen was to be made, a colorful curtain of blue, purple, and crimson yarn with embroidery. This would hang from 5 gold-overlaid acacia columns, each set into a copper base. Every part, curtain, clasp, board, and veil, was crafted to match the heavenly pattern shown to Moses on the mountain. Yahweh gave further instructions to Moses, this time focusing on the altar of burnt offering, the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle, and the perpetual light to be maintained before him. Each element contributed to a space entirely devoted to worship, sacrifice, and divine presence. The altar, central to Israel's sacrificial system, was to be made of acacia wood and overlaid with bronze. It was to be square, 5 cubits long and 5 wide, and 3 cubits high. At each of its 4 corners, a horn was to be constructed, formed as one with the altar, then covered entirely in bronze. Its tools, pots for ashes, shovels, sprinkling basins, forks, and fire pans, were all to be made from the same material. Beneath the altar, a bronze grating was to be crafted like a lattice, with rings affixed at its 4 corners. This grate would sit halfway up the altar's interior, providing a surface for the fire. Poles made of acacia wood, overlaid with bronze, were to be inserted through the rings on the sides, allowing the altar to be carried when the people moved. Like the tabernacle itself, it was to be made precisely as the pattern shown to Moses on the mountain. Surrounding the sacred tent and altar was to be a courtyard. The southern and northern sides were to stretch 100 cubits long, bordered by linen curtains hung on 20 bronze socketed columns, each with silver hooks and bands. The western side would be 50 cubits wide, with 10 columns, and the same on the eastern side. However, the east was divided. Each flank would have 15 cubits of linen curtain with 3 columns, and in between them would be the gate of the court. This entrance, 20 cubits wide, was to be a richly embroidered screen made from blue, purple, and crimson yarns, hung on 4 columns set in bronze bases. The entire courtyard, 50 cubits wide and 100 cubits long, would be enclosed by linen curtains 5 cubits high. All its pegs, as well as those for the tent itself, were to be made of bronze, ensuring the durability and uniformity of every part. The contrast between the brilliance of silver and the earthy strength of bronze gave visual weight and sacred symbolism to the space. Finally, Moses was commanded to have the Israelites bring clear, beaten olive oil for the lamp, pure and prepared for a continual flame. Aaron and his sons were to tend this light from evening until morning, placing it outside the inner veil, but still within the tent of meeting, just before the testimony. This flame was to burn perpetually before Yahweh, across generations, as a lasting statute among the people of Israel. Yahweh commanded Moses to bring near Aaron and his sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, to serve as priests before him. This marked the beginning of the priesthood, a sacred role within Israel, set apart by divine appointment. To honor this calling, garments were to be made for Aaron, garments of holiness, glory, and beauty. These garments were not merely decorative, they were to reflect the majesty of the office and the nearness to the presence of Yahweh. Yahweh instructed Moses to speak to all the skilled artisans, those whom he had filled with wisdom of heart, so they would craft the holy garments. These included a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a tunic of checkered work, a turban, and a sash. Each piece was to be made with gold, blue, purple, double-dipped crimson, and fine linen, materials associated with royalty, purity, and divine splendor. The ephod, a richly designed garment, was made from all these materials with fine workmanship. 2 shoulder pieces joined the front and back, and a band, woven from the same materials, fastened it together. 2 onyx stones, engraved with the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, were set in gold filigree and placed on the shoulder pieces. These stones were to serve as memorials before Yahweh, carried by Aaron as he ministered. Attached to the ephod was the breastplate of judgment, also made with skill and beauty. It was square when folded and contained 12 stones set in 4 rows, each engraved with the name of one of the tribes of Israel. The stones, carnelian, peridot, emerald, carbuncle, sapphire, diamond, jacinth, agate, amethyst, topaz, onyx, and jasper, were set in gold filigree, their arrangement reflecting the tribes they represented. This breastplate was fastened to the ephod by golden chains and rings, so it would remain securely over Aaron's heart when he entered the holy place. Inside the breastplate, Moses was to place the Urim and Thummim, instruments of divine judgment. These, too, were to rest upon Aaron's heart before Yahweh continually, so that he would bear the decisions of Israel with solemn responsibility. The robe worn beneath the ephod was made entirely of blue. It had a reinforced opening at the head like a coat of mail, so it would not tear. Along its hem were alternating golden bells and pomegranates made of blue, purple, and crimson yarn. The sound of the bells would be heard whenever Aaron entered or exited the sanctuary, a sound marking his presence and safeguarding him from death in the holy place. Atop his head, Aaron was to wear a turban, upon which a golden plate was fastened with a blue cord. This plate bore the inscription, "Holy to Yahweh." Positioned on Aaron's forehead, it served as a continual reminder that he bore the iniquity associated with the holy offerings of Israel. By this, the gifts of the people would be accepted before Yahweh. Aaron's garments were not the only ones made. His sons also received tunics, sashes, and caps, for glory and for beauty. Moses was to dress them, anoint them, and consecrate them, so they too might serve as priests. Linen undergarments were also commanded for all priests, to cover their nakedness from waist to thigh. These were to be worn whenever they entered the tent of meeting or approached the altar, so they would not incur guilt and die. This statute was to be observed throughout all generations. Every detail, from the shimmering stones on the breastplate to the woven cords and embroidered hems, was deliberate, crafted not merely for function, but to communicate the holiness, order, and dignity of those who would stand before Yahweh on behalf of the people. This was no ordinary clothing. It was the attire of men set apart to minister in the dwelling place of the Most High. Yahweh instructed Moses on the sacred process of consecrating Aaron and his sons to serve as priests before him. This was no ordinary appointment. It was a rite of deep significance, marked by sacrifice, washing, anointing, and the setting apart of men to bear his holiness on behalf of the people. A young bull and 2 unblemished rams were chosen, along with unleavened bread, cakes mingled with oil, and wafers, all prepared from fine wheat flour. These were placed on a tray and brought to the entrance of the tent of appointment. There, Aaron and his sons were first washed with water, a symbolic act of purification. Moses clothed Aaron in the holy garments, the tunic, the robe, the ephod, the breastplate, and finally the turban, upon which the sacred golden plate was affixed. Then Moses poured the anointing oil on Aaron's head, setting him apart as Yahweh's anointed priest. Aaron's sons were also clothed in tunics and sashes, their heads bound with caps. By this, the priesthood was granted to them as a lasting statute through all generations. Then began the offerings. First, the young bull was brought forward. Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head, identifying with the sacrifice. The bull was slain before the tent, its blood applied to the altar's horns, and the rest poured at its base. The internal fat was burned on the altar, but the rest of the bull, its flesh, hide, and dung, was taken outside the camp and burned, for it was a sin offering. Next came the first ram, Again, the priests laid their hands on its head, and it was slaughtered. Its blood was sprinkled around the altar. The ram was cut into pieces, washed, and fully burned on the altar, a whole burnt offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. Then the second ram, the ram of ordination, was offered. After the laying on of hands, it too was slain. This time its blood was applied to the right ears, right thumbs, and right big toes of Aaron and his sons, marking them holy for divine service, hearing, doing, and walking in obedience. Blood from the altar and anointing oil were then sprinkled upon the garments of the priests, sanctifying both them and their attire. Moses took specific portions from the ram, the fat, the right thigh, and select breads from the unleavened tray, and placed them in the hands of Aaron and his sons. These were waved before Yahweh as a wave offering, then burned on the altar as a sweet aroma. The breast and thigh of this ram were given to Moses, sanctified for his portion, and set as a statute for all generations. The ordination was to last 7 days. Each day a bull was offered as a sin offering for atonement, and the altar was purified and consecrated through anointing. By this ritual, the altar itself became most holy. Anything touching it would become holy. Yahweh also commanded the continual daily offerings, 2 one-year-old lambs each day, 1 in the morning and 1 at twilight, accompanied by fine flour mingled with oil and a wine offering. These regular ascent offerings were to be made at the tent's entrance, where Yahweh promised to meet and speak with his people. His presence would sanctify the tent of appointment, the altar, and the priests themselves. Through this ceremony, Yahweh declared his intent to dwell among the sons of Israel and be their Elohim. It was for this very purpose he had brought them out of Egypt, so that he might tabernacle in their midst. I am Yahweh their Elohim, he said. Yahweh gave Moses precise instructions for preparing and maintaining sacred space, where incense, oil, and atonement offerings would continually rise before him as symbols of purity, devotion, and nearness. First, Moses was commanded to construct a golden altar specifically for burning incense, small, square, with horns, and overlaid with pure gold. Rings and poles allowed it to be carried, and it was to be placed directly in front of the curtain that veiled the Ark of the Covenant, before the very place where Yahweh would meet with his people. Each morning and evening, Aaron was to burn incense upon it, fragrant spices rising with the light and fading of each day. No strange incense, offerings, or libations were ever to be placed upon this altar. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, its horns were to be purified with the blood of the sin offering, making it a most holy object in Yahweh's presence. Then came the command for a ransom. When Israel was numbered, each man 20 years and older was to give half a shekel as an offering to Yahweh. This ransom was not based on wealth. The rich could not give more, the poor no less. It was to remind them all that their lives were sheltered by Yahweh. The silver would be used to support the service of the tabernacle, becoming a memorial of atonement before him. A bronze basin, the laver, was also to be placed between the tent of appointment and the altar. Here, Aaron and his sons were to wash their hands and feet before entering the sanctuary or offering incense. Failure to do so would result in death, a reminder that only the pure may approach the Holy One. This was a statute for all generations. Yahweh then instructed Moses to create a holy anointing oil, a unique blend of myrrh, cinnamon, aromatic cane, cassia, and olive oil. It was not simply perfume, but a sacred compound, set apart to anoint the tent, the ark, the altar, the basin, and every holy item within. Aaron and his sons were also to be anointed, consecrated by this oil to serve as priests. This oil was not to be reproduced or used on anyone outside the priesthood. Anyone who imitated it or used it improperly would be cut off from the community. Lastly, Moses was told to prepare holy incense, a blend of stacte, onycha, murex shell, galbanum, and pure frankincense, mixed in equal parts and salted. It was to be crafted with precision by a skilled compounder and pulverized for use before the ark in the tent of appointment. It too was holy and not to be replicated for personal use. Any who did so would be cut off from Israel. Upon the mountain still veiled in cloud and holy fire, the voice of Yahweh moved again toward Moses, steady and sovereign, and he said, "See, I have called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur of the tribe of Judah." His calling was not rooted in lineage alone, but in divine choosing, a summoning etched from eternity's purpose. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, gifts not conceived by human learning, were poured into him like oil filling a lamp. The spirit of Elohim rested upon him, teaching his hands to command gold and silver, to shape copper, to cut precious stones with precision, to carve wood with reverence. The work before him was not mere labor, it was worship made visible. And Yahweh joined to him Oholiab, son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan. To many others he gave wisdom of heart also, that they might labor together as one body, fashioning all that had been revealed: the tent of appointment, the ark with its covering of mercy, the table and the lampstand, the altars, the vessels of ministry, the sacred garments for Aaron and his sons, the oil of anointing, and the incense of holiness. Nothing was theirs to invent, only to obey, to shape what heaven had already spoken. Then the voice of Yahweh turned toward rest, as a king seals a decree with both warning and blessing. "Surely my Sabbaths you shall keep," he declared, a sign between himself and Israel in every generation, a mark that they were his, and he was the one sanctifying them. Work belonged to 6 days, but the seventh was different, holy, set apart like the mountain beneath Moses' feet. To break it was to break covenant. To honor it was to remember the Creator who labored, then ceased and was refreshed. So Sabbath stood as witness between heaven and the chosen nation, testifying that the one who shaped the heavens and the earth had chosen to dwell among them. And when all the words were finished, when the instruction was complete, Yahweh placed into Moses' hands 2 tablets of testimony, stone carved not by chisel or flame, but written with the finger of Elohim, enduring, weighty, and living. Down below the mountain where cloud and fire crowned the summit, time stretched into silence, and the people grew restless. Their eyes no longer lifted toward the unseen Yahweh, but toward their own impatience. They gathered around Aaron and demanded, "Rise, make gods for us, to go before us. For as for this Moses, who brought us up from Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Gold was torn from ears, wives, sons, daughters, glittering fragments of memory from Egypt's wealth now surrendered in haste. Aaron took the gold, shaped it with tools of human craft, and from flame and molten metal emerged a calf, shining yet lifeless. And the people cried, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt." An altar rose before it. Offerings were made. The morning saw feasting and laughter, revelry in the shadow of idolatry. On the mountain above them, Yahweh spoke, his voice stern and burning with sorrow. "Go down, for your people have corrupted themselves. Quickly they have turned aside from my way." He called them stiff-necked, unyielding, and declared judgment, saying to Moses, "Let me alone, that my anger may burn against them, that I may consume them, yet I will make of you a new nation." But Moses stood between heaven and earth as intercessor, pleading for mercy. He spoke of the promises sworn to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He asked, "Why should the Egyptians say, 'He brought them out only to destroy them'?" And Yahweh, in his compassion, turned from the destruction he had spoken. With the tablets still in his hands, stone written by the very finger of Elohim, Moses descended. Joshua heard noise rising from the camp and thought it battle, But Moses knew. It was the sound of celebration, not war. Then the idol came into view, the calf, the chanting, the unbridled reveling. Anger surged within him, and the tablet shattered upon the rocks, symbol of covenant broken before fully received. Moses burned the calf, ground it into dust, scattered it upon the water, and made the people drink. Bitter reminder of the choice they had made. Aaron trembled under Moses' questioning and offered weak excuse. The gold went into the fire, and this, he claimed, came out. But sin was laid bare, and the camp was exposed in shame. Moses stood at the entrance and cried, "Whoever is for Yahweh, come to me." The sons of Levi stepped forward. With sorrowful obedience they carried swords, and 3,000 fell. Judgment among the covenant people. The next day Moses spoke softly to the shaken assembly. "You have sinned a great sin. Now I will return to Yahweh. Perhaps I may make atonement." And again he ascended, offering himself if forgiveness could not be granted. "If you will not forgive them, blot me out of your book." But Yahweh answered, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out. Yet go, lead the people. My messenger shall go before you, and in the day of visitation I will reckon their sin." A plague followed, consequence of the idol they had shaped with their own hands. The joy of their feast turned to silence. The dance turned to dust. And beneath the weight of shattered tablets and unfinished covenant, Israel waited, humbled beneath the mountain of Elohim. The cloud had not yet lifted from Sinai's heights when Yahweh spoke again to Moses. His words descended like wind on weary stone. "Go up from here, you and the people whom you brought out of Egypt, to the land I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. To their seed I will give it." He promised a messenger would go before them, to drive out the nations that filled the hills, Canaanites, Amorites, and all their kind. The land would still flow with milk and honey, but his presence, his nearness, would not go among them. "For you are a stiff-necked people," he declared, "lest I consume you on the way." The people heard this word, and mourning gripped their hearts. No ornaments adorned their bodies now. They stripped themselves of gold and pride, standing bare before judgment, uncertain of what Yahweh might do. From the moment of Horeb's trembling, they walked without adornment, shadows of their defiance trailing behind. Moses, aching with the burden of intercession, pitched the tent outside the camp, far from the noise of rebellion. There it stood, the tent of appointment, a place of meeting between dust and divinity. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose in solemn reverence. Each stood at the entrance of his own tent, watching as he passed. And when the man of God entered, the column of cloud descended and stood at the doorway. There Yahweh spoke with Moses, as a man speaks with his friend, face to face. But even as Moses returned to the camp, one remained behind, Joshua, son of Nun, still in the sacred shadow of the tent, unwilling to leave the holy hush. And Moses, heart heavy, turned again to Yahweh in prayer. "See, you tell me to lead this people, but you have not told me whom you will send. Yet you have said, 'I know you by name, and you have found favor in my eyes.' If I have found favor, let me know your way. Let me know you." Yahweh answered him, "My presence shall go, and I will give you rest." But Moses, bold with sacred longing, cried out, "If your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. For how shall it be known that we have found favor in your eyes, unless you go with us? Is it not your presence that sets us apart from all the peoples of the earth?" Yahweh, moved by his servant's plea, said, "This too I will do, for you have found favor in my eyes, and I know you by name." But Moses pressed still further into the mystery. "Show me your glory." And Yahweh replied, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim my name, Yahweh, before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show compassion to whom I will show compassion. But you cannot see my face, for no human may see me and live." Then the voice of Yahweh unfolded a promise in shadow and cleft. "There is a place by me. Stand upon the rock. When my glory passes by, I will place you in the fissure of the rock and cover you with my palm until I pass. Then I will remove my palm, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen." At the base of Sinai, the shattered covenant still echoed in silence, but Yahweh did not leave his people in ruin. He called once more to Moses and said, "Carve for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write again the words that were upon the tablets you broke." And he summoned Moses to ascend again alone into the heights of the holy mountain before the breaking light of dawn. None were to follow. Not man nor beast was to touch the mountain. It was a place where the voice of the Eternal would pass near again. So Moses rose early, carrying the fresh tablets in hand, and climbed once more to Sinai's summit. There, in the cloud's descent, Yahweh came down and stood with him, and the name above all names, was declared. Yahweh, Yahweh El, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, rich in covenant love and faithfulness, keeping mercy for thousands, bearing iniquity and transgression and sin, yet by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generation. And Moses, trembling beneath the glory, bowed low to the ground and cried out, "If I have found grace in your eyes, Lord, let the Lord go in the midst of us. Though we are a stiff-necked people, pardon our sin and take us as your own inheritance." Yahweh answered with covenant, "Behold, I make a covenant with you. Before all your people I will do marvels never seen on the earth. The nations shall behold my work, for it is awesome what I am doing with you." Then came his charge. The land would be theirs, but they must not make peace with its idolatry. Tear down their altars, break their pillars, cut down their Asherah poles. For you shall not bow to another god, for Yahweh, jealous is his name, is a jealous El. He warned them against intermingling with the peoples and their gods, lest hearts be drawn into harlotry. "Molten images you shall not make," he commanded. They were to keep the appointed feasts, the feast of unleavened bread in the month of Abib, for that was their hour of deliverance. The firstborn of every womb belonged to Yahweh, man and beast alike. They were to cease from labor on the 7th day, even in the press of harvest and the heat of plowing. 3 times each year every male was to appear before the Lord, Yahweh, the God of Israel. And he promised, "I will drive out nations before you. No man shall covet your land when you come before me." They were to bring the first of their first fruits to the sanctuary of their God. And again the strange command, "You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Write these words, for by them I have made covenant with you and with Israel." So Moses remained there with Yahweh for 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water, and upon those fresh-cut stones the finger of God wrote again the covenant, the 10 words of life. When at last Moses descended from the mountain, carrying the new tablets of testimony, he was unaware that the skin of his face shone with light born of speech with the Eternal. Aaron and the people saw the radiance and drew back in fear. But Moses called to them, and the leaders returned. He spoke to them all that Yahweh had commanded, and after he had spoken, he placed a veil over his face. Yet when he entered to speak with Yahweh again, he removed the veil. And when he came out, he would speak Yahweh's words to the people, and they would behold the glow upon his countenance, the reflection of glory. Then he would veil his face once more, until the next encounter with the divine. And Moses gathered the whole congregation of the children of Israel under the sky that hung like a veil between the holy and the common, and he spoke to them the words that had come down from the cloud-wrapped mountain. These are the commands Yahweh has given, that you may do them. He reminded them first of rest, that sacred breath drawn into every seventh day. 6 days you shall labor, but the seventh is holy, a Sabbath to Yahweh. Let no fire be kindled in your dwellings upon it. A flame in rebellion was a flame against heaven. Then his voice turned to invitation, not demand. From the mouth of Yahweh came not only law, but call, an open summons to the stirred and willing. Bring an offering to Yahweh, he said, every heart that is moved. Let gold come and silver and bronze. Let the threads of blue and purple and crimson pour from your hands. Bring fine linen and goat's hair, ram skins dyed red, and the leather of the sea. Bring oil for the light, spices for incense, stones for setting, wood for shaping. This was not a burden, but a shared offering, not pressed from them in tax or tribute, but drawn like rivers from awakened hearts. The word spread through the camp like wind through palms, and they came. First, the congregation departed from before Moses, but then they returned, each man, each woman whose spirit had stirred. One by one, they came forward with gifts. Gold rippled from their palms, clasps and rings, pendants and ornaments. The metals of Egypt, once worn in bondage, now given in freedom. Spools of colored thread were offered by the hands of the wise-hearted women, spinning from their tents the blue, the purple, the deep crimson. Goat's hair was gathered, spun by fingers moved by reverence. The leaders brought jewels, onyx and stones set to shine upon the ephod and breastplate of the priest. Aromatics followed, frankincense, oil for light, oil for anointing, incense for the veil of smoke that would rise like prayer. There was no compulsion, only willingness, no force, only joy. The work of the sanctuary was not founded on obligation, but generosity, voluntary gifts rising from awakened hearts. Then Moses spoke again. See, Yahweh has called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. The spirit of Elohim had filled him, not only with skill, but with wisdom, with understanding, with divine knowledge, and with the holy imagination to craft beauty for God. He was given the hand of an artisan, the eye of a designer, the spirit of one who carves and weaves and sets fire to metal and stone until they praise. And beside him, Yahweh appointed Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, from the tribe of Dan. Into both their hearts he placed not only craftsmanship, but the gift to teach, to guide others in sacred labor. Their hands would shape what eyes had not seen, the tabernacle of the Most High, stitched in shadow and flame, built by the hands of the faithful, who gave without being asked again. The work began in silence, not from hesitation, but from reverence. Bezalel and Oholiab, filled with the breath of divine craftsmanship, stepped forward alongside every man whose heart was stirred and whose hands had been gifted with wisdom from Elohim. They came not as laborers under burden, but as servants of a holy task, builders of the dwelling place of the Most High. And from Moses they received the offerings, wave upon wave, rising like morning dew. Each day the people brought more, gold that had once adorned foreign necks, cloth dyed in precious color, wood smooth and chosen, stones like fire and water glinting in their palms. It was not demanded, it flowed freely, as though Yahweh had opened their hands from within. The artisans ceased their shaping for a moment to come before Moses. Their eyes bore wonder, and they said, "The people have brought more than enough. The work has been supplied. There is even surplus." So Moses gave the word, and a voice passed through the camp like a soft wind of restraint. "Let no man or woman bring more." And the people, though eager, obeyed. Their generosity had risen to overflow. With sacred design in hand, the skilled began the labor. 10 curtains of woven cambric were shaped with threads of blue, purple, and crimson, each one alive with cherubim stitched by a designer's hand. 5 curtains were joined to 5, looped in blue and clasped in gold until the tabernacle stood as one. Then came 11 curtains of goat's hair, longer still, to form the covering of the sacred tent. They were joined with copper links, overlaid in turn with dyed ram's skins and the leather of the deep, layer upon layer, a shelter for the holy. From standing boards of acacia wood, the structure rose, 10 cubits high, a cubit and a half wide, each with twin tenons, fitted together in symmetry. 20 boards for the south, 20 for the north, 6 for the west, with 2 forming the corners. Beneath them, silver sockets held them fast, 2 per board, foundation of holy dwelling. Bars of acacia crossed the walls, 5 for each side, with a central bar stretching from end to end, unseen, yet holding all in unity. Every piece overlaid in gold, every ring shaped to receive what was needed. The veil was made, rich and thick, blue, purple, crimson, and linen interwoven with cherubim, divine guardians embroidered by skilled hands. It hung not in mere division, but in mystery, separating the holy from the most holy. 4 columns of acacia held the veil, their surfaces sheathed in gold, standing upon sockets of silver. Hooks of gold fastened the barrier, and its weight was not only in fabric, but in purpose. Then the entrance portiere was woven, again in blue and crimson and purple, but now embroidered with an open hand, welcoming yet solemn. 5 columns held it, their heads and joints gleaming with gold, and their bases cast in copper, the threshold between the world and the tent where glory would dwell. And thus the sanctuary began to rise, not by command alone, but by the will of stirred hearts, and by the skill of hands anointed by the breath of Elohim. Bezalel, whose hands had been filled with the wisdom of Elohim, stepped forward once more, this time to shape what would become the heart of the sacred dwelling. From acacia wood he crafted the ark, its measurements precise, its form humble yet destined for glory. Inside and out he overlaid it with pure gold, and a golden flange circled it like a crown. 4 rings he cast for its corners, and through them slipped poles of gold-covered acacia, fashioned to carry the throne of the invisible. Upon it he formed the propitiatory shelter, also of pure gold, its dimensions a mirror to the ark. At its 2 ends, from the same beaten piece, he raised cherubim with wings spread upward, their faces bowed inward, gazing upon the mercy seat. Their wings overshadowed the place where Yahweh would meet with his people, a throne hidden in holiness, cradled between the guardians of glory. The table came next, shaped of the same acacia wood and covered in gold. A border was carved around it, a handbreadth wide, with a golden flange adorning its edge. 4 golden rings anchored its corners, and poles of wood, overlaid with gold, were set for lifting. Upon this table, the vessels were laid, dishes, bowls, spoons, and cups for libation, all of them wrought from pure gold, shimmering with the light of devotion. Then Bezalel fashioned the lampstand, the menorah, from one piece of beaten gold. It rose from its stem with 6 branches, 3 from each side. Each branch bloomed with almond-shaped cups, adorned with spheres and buds, as though the tree of light blossomed again in the wilderness. The central shaft held 4 cups, and below each pair of branches a golden sphere connected them in harmony. 7 lamps crowned its arms, with snuffers and fire pans beside them, all from the same talent of gold. Nothing wasted, nothing divided. He moved on to the incense altar, square and upright, built again from acacia and overlaid in shining gold. Its horns rose from its corners, of one piece with the altar, and its rim glimmered with a golden border. Rings of gold were forged beneath its crown to hold the poles for carrying. And once more, poles of gold-covered acacia were prepared, so that even in movement, the altar would not be touched by unclean hands. Last, he turned to the sacred perfumes, the holy anointing oil and the fragrant incense. These he prepared with the skill of a compounder, using the finest spices as commanded. Oil to consecrate, incense to rise like prayers, the invisible woven into scent and ritual. Everything, down to the last ring and thread, was made exactly as Yahweh had spoken to Moses. Every task was not merely completed, it was fulfilled. The work bore the weight of obedience and the breath of holiness. The work of the sanctuary neared its fulfillment, and Bezalel, with hands consecrated to skill and obedience, shaped the altar of ascent offerings. Of acacia wood it was formed, square and broad, overlaid with burnished copper. Its horns rose from the corners as one with its body, a design of strength and atonement. Pots, forks, bowls, shovels, and fire pans, all its tools of flame and sacrifice, were crafted from copper, their use set apart for holy fire. Beneath its frame, a grate of copper mesh was fixed, halfway up from the base, and into it were cast 4 rings, a place for the poles of carrying. Those poles too were made of acacia, wrapped in copper, to bear the weight of blood and smoke without defilement. The altar was hollow, its planks forming a chamber for the flame. From the polished mirrors of the women who gathered at the entrance of the tent, a basin was made, the laver of copper set upon a base of the same. It would be filled with water for cleansing, a pool of reflection, both literal and symbolic, wrought from the offerings of those who served in devotion and humility. The court rose around the holy structure, bound by fine twisted linen, its fabric stretched between columns of copper. On the south and north sides, each 100 cubits in length, 20 pillars stood, their hooks and bands adorned in silver. Westward, the curtain was shorter, 50 cubits with 10 pillars, and eastward, it opened with symmetry, 2 sides of 15 cubits each, framing the gate. The gate itself bore threads of blue and purple, crimson and linen, embroidered by skilled hands. It spanned 20 cubits, rising 5 cubits high to match the surrounding walls. Its columns, 4 in number, stood upon sockets of copper, their hooks and tops gleaming with silver. Every peg of the court and of the tabernacle was also of copper, anchoring heaven's pattern to the earth. And then came the account, the sacred inventory. Moses, by command of Yahweh, had the tally kept through Ithamar, son of Aaron. Bezalel, son of Uri, and Aholiab, son of Ahisamach, the craftsman endowed with wisdom and inspiration, had labored in unity and precision. Every cubit, every talent, every thread was counted, not for pride or excess, but as a testimony of faithfulness. From the people's wave offerings, 29 talents and 730 shekels of gold were gathered. 100 talents and 1,775 shekels of silver came from those counted in the assembly, each man, from 20 years and above, offering half a shekel in sacred weight. These became the sockets beneath the sanctuary, 1 talent per socket, firm foundations forged in silver. Hooks, overlays, and connectors for the pillars were shaped from the remaining silver. The copper offering totaled 70 talents and 2,400 shekels, and from this were made the altar's fittings, the sockets of the court and its gate, and every peg that held Yahweh's dwelling in place. Nothing was wasted, nothing was added without purpose. Every element bore the mark of obedience, not innovation, an earthly reflection of a heavenly design, now complete in form, awaiting the final breath of glory. The holy garments, wrought for the glory of priestly service, were now brought to completion. From the dyed threads of blue, purple, and deep crimson, artisans wove garments for ministry within the sacred space. Every piece was made precisely as Yahweh had commanded Moses. The ephod, The vestment of the high priest was richly crafted with gold threads, actual gold beaten into fine wires, woven with the colored threads and twisted linen, forming a design worthy of divine service. 2 shoulder pieces joined the ephod at the top, and upon each was set an onyx stone, engraved like a seal with the names of 6 tribes of Israel. These were memorial stones, worn to bear the people before Yahweh continually. The skillful band of the ephod was of the same craftsmanship, bound as one with the garment, its every thread according to Yahweh's instruction. Then the breastplate was made, square when folded, a span by a span. It shimmered with 12 stones, arranged in 4 rows, each stone engraved with the name of one of the tribes: carnelian, sapphire, emerald, diamond, and more, all set in gold filigree. Twisted chains of gold connected the breastplate to the ephod, securing it so it would never slip or fall, as Yahweh had commanded. A robe of deep blue was woven for the high priest, its collar reinforced like the neck of a coat of mail, that it not tear. Around its hem were pomegranates of blue, purple, and crimson, alternating with bells of pure gold, a sound to accompany the priest as he entered the sanctuary, so he might be heard before Yahweh and not die. Tunics of fine linen were made for Aaron and his sons, along with their caps, sashes, and breeches, all of white, woven with craftsmanship and reverence. Their sashes were embroidered with the same colored threads, matching the splendor of their calling. Upon the high priest's turban was placed a golden plate, engraved with the words, "Holy to Yahweh." It was fastened with blue cord, a sign upon his forehead, bearing the consecration of the priesthood. With the garments finished, the work of the entire tabernacle was brought to Moses. The tent and its furnishings, its frames and bars, its coverings of red and azure hide, the curtain that veiled the most holy place, all were delivered. The ark, its poles, and the propitiatory cover, the table and the bread of the presence, the golden lampstand with its arrayed lamps and vessels, the altar of incense, the oil, and the fragrant spices, all were ready. The bronze altar, its grating and tools, the laver and its stand, the linen courtyard with its columns and silver hooks, the gate's embroidered screen, every peg and rope, all were present. The garments too were delivered, for Aaron and his sons, for service in the holy place. The people had done everything exactly as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Nothing was left undone, nothing added in presumption. Moses inspected all the work, and when he saw that it matched Yahweh's word in every detail, he blessed them. The sanctuary of Yahweh was now fully prepared, a dwelling not only for his glory, but also for obedience, for order, and for beauty, all born of the hearts of a people stirred to serve. On the first day of the first month, in the 2nd year since Israel's exodus from Egypt, Yahweh spoke to Moses with a command both majestic and precise. The time had come to raise the tabernacle, the tent of appointment. This sacred dwelling, crafted with exacting obedience, was now to be set in place. Every item, every piece of furniture was to find its ordained place. For this was not a structure of human invention, but the earthly expression of Yahweh's divine presence among his people. Moses began by placing the Ark of the Testimony within the innermost chamber of the tent and screened it off with the veil. There, hidden behind the curtain, was the mercy seat, overshadowed by cherubim, where the voice of Yahweh would speak. In the holy place, outside the veil, he arranged the table of the bread of presence on the north side and set its loaves in proper order. Opposite it, on the south side, the golden lampstand was placed, and its lamps were kindled before Yahweh, filling the tent with sacred light. He then positioned the golden altar of incense before the veil and offered the fragrant incense upon it, just as Yahweh had commanded. The entrance to the tent was hung with the portiere, marking the threshold to holiness. Before the tent, Moses placed the bronze altar and offered ascent offerings and approach presents as commanded. Between the altar and the tent, he placed the laver and filled it with water. From it, he and Aaron's sons washed their hands and feet, purifying themselves before entering or approaching the altar, in obedience to the divine word. The court surrounding the tent and altar was then enclosed with linen curtains and its gate screen set in place. Every item, the coverings, the frames, the sockets, the utensils, had been made according to Yahweh's precise instruction. When Moses finished all the work, he took the anointing oil and consecrated the tabernacle and all within it. The altar and the laver were also anointed, set apart as most holy. Aaron and his sons were brought forward, washed, robed in the priestly garments, and anointed, marking the beginning of their perpetual priesthood. And then the moment arrived. The cloud descended and covered the tent of appointment. The glory of Yahweh filled the tabernacle so completely that even Moses could not enter. The God who had thundered on Sinai now rested among his people, not in fire and terror, but in settled glory. This was not a passing visitation, it was the divine indwelling. A sanctuary had been made, and Yahweh had filled it with his presence. From that day onward, the cloud was their guide. When it lifted, they broke camp and journeyed forward. When it remained, they stayed put. By day, the cloud of Yahweh hovered over the tabernacle, and by night, fire lit the dwelling, visible to all the house of Israel in all their journeys. As the final scene of Exodus fades with the cloud of Yahweh resting over the tabernacle, a new chapter in Israel's journey quietly prepares to unfold, one that will test not only their obedience, but their identity as a nation set apart. Though Yahweh now dwells in their midst, the story has not reached its fullness. The people, newly consecrated and led by a divine presence, will soon be called to more than worship. They will be summoned to walk in holiness. In the wilderness ahead, they must learn not only how to serve Yahweh in ritual, but how to live with Him in their daily lives. Their journey will not be without failure. Rebellion, fear, and forgetfulness still lie in wait. Even Moses, Yahweh's faithful servant, will see the limits of his leadership tested. Yet through it all, the glory of Yahweh will not fade. The next book, Leviticus, will not carry forward by the movement of feet, but by the movement of the heart, calling Israel into deeper communion, stricter purity, and sacred order. The holy God who has chosen to dwell among a human people will now teach them what it means to be holy as He is holy. See you in the next video.